was a bill. Let's just be specific. Let's make sure that we have the facts here. $50 billion slowdown of spending. We're going to spend $2 trillion over that period of time. Yes, I would have voted for that piece of legislation, and we need to further reduce spending in Washington, D.C. and bring down these deficits.
College loans, that's what Congresswoman Bean says. She said these are people who need the college loans. They're not giveaway programs. She says they'll be paid back. She says you're cutting into, if you vote against that, you want to cut into constituents in your district, young constituents who need those loans to go to college.
Jeff, this is the old Trojan horse Democratic argument. All we're doing is slowing down the spending increases in the future. We're spending $2.6 trillion per year on the federal budget. Education spending has increased. I'm a supporter of college loans for needy students. But what we need to do is slow the growth of federal spending so we can bring down these deficits in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so you stand by that. What about, did you talk with Congressman Mark Kirk? Did he vote?
No.
Did he vote against that?
I believe you're incorrect on the final.
So you're saying he supported those cuts in the rates of growth of spending?
I'm not going to comment on Mark Kirk. I know there were earlier pieces of legislation. You may be referring to appropriations bill for Health and Human Services, which I know he voted against. But I believe, and you did check the record, that he did support the reconciliation bill upon final passage. But I'm telling you what Dave McSweeney believes, and I believe that we need to reduce the growth of federal spending in Washington, D.C.
Stand behind those pro-family values. I will always oppose embryonic stem cell research.
You know, when Congressman Phil Crane was on this show, and when he was a congressman from this district, he said he didn't favor any gun control, and I was surprised. I said, you mean you don't favor it on the federal level, you favor state? And he said, no, I don't favor any gun control. That was Congressman Phil Crane. You agree with him?
I don't think we need any further gun control
laws. I didn't say further. I didn't imply we don't need any. He didn't say.
No. I mean, we have an instant background check.
Okay.
I support that.
You support that?
We don't, which is the position of the Republicans in Congress and myself. We 100% should focus on punishing criminals as opposed to punishing law-abiding citizens. And that's why I favor mandatory sentences for criminals who commit crimes while using a gun.
But you do favor the existing gun control we have, and you would favor instant checks, just not the delay period that I think the Brady bill provides for a delay. You don't favor that.
I oppose the Brady bill.
But you would favor instant checks, and you would say that ex-felons, people who have been convicted of a felony under the current law, are not allowed to possess and own a gun.
That's correct.
You agree with that legislation, right?
Exactly. That's the instant background check. That's not the Brady bill. I oppose the Brady bill.
But at that time, when Congressman Crane was here, we had a ban on assault weapons, and I asked him if he agreed with that, and he said no. I said, why would somebody need an assault weapon? And he said, Congressman Crane said, whatever melts your butter. Do you agree with Congressman Crane?
What I'm telling you is my position. We do not need an assault ban. It was allowed to expire because all that it did is create administrative difficulties for people who are law-abiding citizens.
Why do people need assault weapons?
What we need to do, and let me answer that question, but let me first of all say what we need to do, again, is punish criminals who are committing crimes while using a gun. Number one, the legitimate hunting, target practice needs, etc. Let's punish criminals, not law-abiding citizens.
Okay, but why does somebody need an assault weapon?
The reason somebody needs an assault weapon is people use it for whether it be hunting, target practice,
does that sound like a fair matchup with a deer? You need an assault weapon to kill a deer?
It can be used for practice. Again, let's focus on punishing criminals, not law-abiding citizens.
Okay.
And the sports for sportsmen, for target practice, for hunting, etc.
Okay. On the tax issue, there was a recent tax vote on making permanent, or at least extending, the tax cuts for dividends and capital gains taxes that were lowered a few years ago, and I think the legislation that passed the House extended those tax cuts to the year 2010. The incumbent, Congresswoman Melissa Bean, voted for that. She voted with the House Republicans on that issue. You would have voted with Melissa Bean on that issue?
Absolutely, but the difference between Melissa Bean and myself is I want to make those tax cuts permanent. I don't want a short-term fix of the capital gains reduction, and dividend reduction has helped create an economic positive force in this country, kept us out of a recession. I want to make President Bush's tax cuts permanent. I would have voted for the short-term extension, but when I get to Congress, I will lead the fight to make those permanent.
Okay, but that was the vote on the floor to make it for 2 years. I don't know how she would have voted if it had been longer term. It was the Republican bill that she supported that extended those tax cuts for 2 years. You understand?
I understand that completely.
You're saying you would have pushed the Republicans to come up with a bill that made those long-term, permanent.
I would have voted for the bill that was on the floor of the House last Thursday that extended those tax cuts, but I would push, when I get to the United States Congress, I will be a leader in making sure all those tax cuts are permanent, because that is the key to creating economic growth and prosperity in this country.
Now, as you know, there was a Republican bill to cut the rate of growth of spending on college loans, on Medicaid, a variety of other areas.
As far as Medicare is concerned, as I said before, for the new prescription drug Part D program, let's means test that for the highest income individuals. We also have a crazy system in this country where seniors cannot pay supplementally out of their own pocket if they want to pay for medical services in addition to what Medicare covers. Allow seniors the flexibility to pay doctors. We have our best doctors covering our seniors. But we need to protect Social Security while reforming it and make changes in Medicare. Thank you very much.
Eliminate that benefit for the highest income seniors. Why should our children borrow money from the Chinese to pay for Donald Trump's free prescription drugs? Let's make it only for low and middle income individuals. But that's not the congressional stuff. It's just a drop in the bucket. We need to cut spending.
Do you still support, or did you ever support, raising the age for Social Security?
I supported the 1983 legislation that President Reagan signed, which actually increased the retirement age, and that's actually being put in place right now. And if we supported that back in 1988, there was talk in 1988 about actually eliminating that provision and going back and doing it. And what happens right now is you raise the retirement age to 67 years of age through, I think it's 2021 and 2022. Fully supportive of the Ronald Reagan Act that he signed back in 1983.
82, but in 98 you said you were for raising the Social Security.
I said I was for the 1983 Act, which actually increased the retirement age over a period of time. And I opposed, in fact, I was asked the question, would I support legislation that would eliminate that provision in the 1983 Act? And I said, absolutely not. I support...
They asked you about the old Act?
Absolutely.
In 98. And so when you said you wanted to raise the age, you were referring to the old Ronald Reagan Act?
I was referring to the 1983 Act, which actually increased the retirement age over a period of time, and I support that 100%. So that's being phased in, and that's the law, and it's supported overwhelmingly by the Republican